Booktube. My name is Sarah and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my weekly reads for June the 9th of 2018. In my weekly reads videos every week, I talk about all the books that I finished reading and all the books that I am currently reading. So I kind of do like little mini reviews in these videos. For those of you who might be new, I do put timestamps in the description box below because these videos tend to run longer because I do like to talk about the books. You know, whether they're good or bad doesn't matter. I still do like to talk about them. I do put timestamps below, so if you want to jump ahead to a certain book or you're not interested in hearing about a certain book, please feel free to utilize that feature. I do that for you guys to make it a little bit easier because, like I said, these can run a little bit longer because I am rambly. So, I don't know if you noticed, probably not. I'm sitting in the same location I always sit in, but I'm sitting in a completely different seat. When I record these videos, typically I'm sitting on a stool, and I have like my table for my laptop, and I just kind of set my camera up there because I use my phone. And because of some stuff, we decided to rearrange the living room. Well, I decided to rearrange the living room. My husband says to me, he was at work when I did this, he's like, "You can't lift the laundry basket downstairs, but you can rearrange living room furniture." I'm like, where there's a will, there's a way. Women can rearrange furniture like there's nobody's business. So anyway, I rearranged the furniture in the living room, and I have this really comfy, like, kind of club chair that has kind of just become like a catch-all in the corner because we didn't really have it sitting anywhere. And, you know, your coat gets thrown on there, my purse would get thrown on there, you know, cat toys would get thrown on there. So when I moved everything around, I wanted to have this seat for me to sit and read and knit and still be able to watch TV and what have you. And my the one cat has taken over my seat on the couch, so I can't get it back now, so I'm stuck in this chair. But anyway, I just moved the chair back from where it would normally sit so I can sit here and record for you guys. And it is super comfortable. Like, I could do this all day long. So, all that being said, that doesn't matter. It's just really comfy for me. And I'm actually recording on Friday night right now. Because tomorrow, Saturday, is actually going to be super busy for me, and I'm not going to have any time to sit and record. So I thought I'm best to do it now, and that way I can upload it, you know, tomorrow, and then my other videos for during the week. So it is actually 9:30 at night on Friday, so if it seems like it's actually dark outside, it is. So I've got the lighting set up. I hope everything's okay. I know, I'm not going to be one of those people who apologizes for the lighting or anything like that, because from what I'm seeing, it looks fine, so I hope it works for you guys. Anyway, I finished 6 books this week, so let's get into them before I continue to ramble forever. So the very first book that I finished this week was The Farmer's Wife by Mallery Handeland. This was of course, contemporary romance novel. It is book number 1 in the Lucetti Brothers series. It is Harlequin Super Romance number 1099. It was published in 2002 by Harlequin. It has an average rating of 3.99 stars on Goodreads, and I gave it 3.5 stars. I actually didn't get any challenges for this one. This is one of the print books that I was reading, and I typically, unless I can fit them somewhere, I don't. Not that a lot of the books that I read, well, I do. Like when I do my TBRs every month, like the books I pick are slotted specifically into challenges, but these ones are not. But if I can fit them somewhere, I will. This one, unfortunately, there was nowhere I could really fit it. This was a really cute story. It was about Kim and Brian. And Kim and Brian were a couple in high school. And, you know, they grew up on respective farms. Like, each of their families had, like, a dairy farm. And it takes place in Illinois. I think it's Illinois. Yeah, it's Illinois. And, you know, pretty much, you know, everybody thought that her and Brian were going to get married. Well, she didn't want to marry him. Not because she didn't love him, but because she didn't want to become a farmer's wife. She expected, like, she wanted to do more with her life than just be a woman who stays at home and raises kids. Not that that is a typical farmer's wife. Like, I'm not saying that that's what it is, but that's what Kim felt. Like, this is Kim's perspective, not my own personal thoughts on what a farmer's wife would be. But anyway, she didn't want that. And there's also something that happened between the two of them that you're alluded to throughout the whole book, but you're not actually told what it is till the very end. That kind of goes into their story and why they had these problems and why the catalyst that really made her run. And she went to Savannah, and she hadn't been home in 10 years. So the beginning of the book, she comes back home because her father has suffered a heart attack, and he wanted her to come home. So she's home, and she decides to go call on Brian to see how he's doing. Well, she actually startles him because he's up on the roof doing some repairs, and he falls and breaks both of his wrists. So because she's kind of at fault for him doing this, she agrees to kind of take care of him because he can literally do nothing with 2 broken wrists. So she essentially starts to become a farmer's wife. and, you know, does everything for him, milking the cows. There's some hysterical scenes where there's a sheep that he has named Ba, that's the sheep's name, and the sheep actually thinks it's a dog because it's been raised with dogs, and it doesn't like Kim, and it like tries to butt her every time it goes outside, or she goes outside. And then there's this great scene where she's in the chicken coop trying to pick the eggs out. It's really good. So their story was really cute, but then there's also a side story, which is what I love about the super romance novels, is that they often have a great B plot, a secondary plot, if you will, and this was actually about Kim's parents, and, you know, how the mom is going through menopause, and she thinks that the husband doesn't love her anymore because she's not going to be able to have any more children, even though all their children are grown. I mean, Kim's the baby, and she's been graduated from high school for 10 years, so, you know, that should tell you something. But, you know, she feels her worth as a wife isn't as good anymore. And there's a great story with the two of them, and how, you know, as you've been married for like 30, 40 years, how communication can fall apart and how you can't let that go away. I actually, stepping back from the story now, after finishing it, I actually think I enjoyed Kim's parents' story more than I enjoyed Kim's story. Do you know what I mean? It was really, really good and really cute. If you can find this one, it is available on ebook. I found it on Amazon. It's got a different cover than the one I'm showing here, but just search The Farmer's Wife and the author, and you should definitely be able to find it. I think it might only be 99 cents. It was a relatively clean story. There were a little bit of adult content, but nothing that was overly spicy. It's something that if you really were uncomfortable, could flip through it in just 2 or 3 pages. It's not very long. So yeah, and little or no swearing, I don't think either. So just so you know. The next book that I finished this week was You Say It First by Susan Mallery. This was another contemporary romance novel. It is book number 1 in the Happily Inc. series. It was narrated on audio by Tanya Ebby. I, of course, listened to it on audio. It was published in 2017 by HQN. It has an average rating of 3.76 stars on Goodreads, and I gave it 4 stars. I loved this story. I love Susan Mallery. I got 2 challenges completed out of this one. The first one, for the What to Read in 2018, favorite author. You may either reread an old favorite or continue with one you haven't read yet. So she is a favorite. I picked a new series that I haven't started yet, so yay. And then for the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs Quarterly Challenge, I got the Stone Tourmaline, which is read a book with at least 3 colors on the cover, or a sports story. This one definitely has a lot of bright colors on the cover. So this is the story of Pallas, P-A-L-L-A-S, Pallas. It's a Greek name, one of the Greek goddesses, I think. It's explained in the story, and Nick. And this entire series is the beginning of a series. There's 2.5 books out now. I say that because there's a novella. So there's 2 books, then the novella, and there's 2 more books coming out later this year. So there'll be 4 full books and a novella out in total. So the whole premise of the Happily Inc. series is, I love it. It made me so happy when I heard it. It is an offshot of the Fool's Gold series, but you don't have to have read Fool's Gold to read this. It's just mentioned that that's where Nick comes from. So that's kind of the driving force from one series to the other. And the whole premise of the series, it's about a town, and the town's name is actually Happily Inc. California. And this whole town is a wedding destination town. Pallas's father, or grandfather, excuse me, who runs the bank, or who owns the bank, started this like fable 50 years ago or 60 years ago about this, like, you know, that didn't happen then, but happened like 100 years ago, that this group of, you know, mail order brides was coming through town to go elsewhere, to go to like Los Angeles or something like that. And the stagecoach broke down and they had to stay in town. Well, then they ended up marrying all these guys in town. So then it became like this destination wedding place. Well, Pallas owns a business that was actually willed to her by her old boss. She worked there for about 8 years, and then he passed and he gave her the business, and it's called Weddings in the Box. And she does weddings for couples. So she hires Nick because she needs these panels restored, these wooden panels, and he's an artist. He's actually a very famous artist, a very well-known artist. And he's kind of taking some time off to decide what he wants to do, like if he's going to take this job in Dubai or what have you. And it's essentially their relationship. I don't want to go too much more into it than that. It was Susan Mallery. It was absolutely fantastic. Like I said, I did listen to this one on audio. As usual, Tanya Ebby, I'm sorry, I can never pronounce her name correctly. did a fabulous job. You meet all kinds of other people in town, and you know that their stories are going to be coming up soon. So you kind of, as typical in a first book in a series, you kind of get overwhelmed with a lot of characters. But they are very distinct, and you kind of figure out who is who. Because, you know, they're kind of setting the groundwork for the rest of the series. But I think that this is going to be another great series, just as much as I loved Fool's Gold. This is more of a contemporary romance than a chick lit, so it is based on the actual romance, unlike last week I read The Friends We Keep by Susan Mallery, and that was definitely more of a friendship story, as, you know, this one's more of the romance. So if you like this kind of thing, I highly recommend that you check this series out. It's adorable, and I am so looking forward to getting to the rest of the books. The next book that I finished was Odd Man Out by B.J. Daniels. This is a romantic suspense novel, excuse me. It is Harlequin Intrigue number 312. It was published in 1995 by Harlequin. It has an average rating on Goodreads of 4.19 stars, and I gave it 3.5 stars. No challenges done for this one. This one and the next book were not originally planned on my TBR. I will explain at the end of this video, or towards the end when I'm talking about what I'm currently reading. I'll explain why I'm reading these books. And yeah, so for now, let's just go with it. So yes, I read this one, like I said, by B.J. Daniels. This is actually the very first book that B.J. Daniels ever wrote. And there was a reason, again, that I hunted it out, and I'll explain in a few minutes. This was a really good story. It was about Denver and, Denver and J.D. So, the story starts off at Denver's uncle's funeral, and her uncle kind of raised her from the age of 6. When she was 6, she was out with her mom and dad. Her father was a police officer, and they walked into a bank, and he had just finished his shift, so he was still in uniform, and they walked into a bank that was currently in the middle of being robbed, and both of her parents were shot and killed. And she was then, you know, taken by her dad's brother and raised. Now, her father's brother was a private investigator, and then he was killed mysteriously. So that's kind of where the story opens up. Now, JD is an old friend. They kind of grew up together, and, you know, she had a mad crush on him, but, you know, he was a few years older than her, about 3 years older than her, and then he took off to Nashville to become a major country music star. And, but he came back for Max's funeral, the uncle. And so over the course of the whole premise of this story is Denver and JD. The one thing I love about B.J. Daniels is she has very unique character names. Very unique. They're not run-of-the-mill, which is actually really fun. You tend to remember them. But anyway, Denver and JD, and they are kind of searching for why her uncle got killed and what he knew, what he was investigating leading up to his death. And, you know, it's like I said, it's a suspense. It's really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I mean, for her first novel, now I don't know whether it was her first novel, but it was her first novel published for Harlequin. So, it was really enjoyable. And the cover that you see here is the re-release cover. They re-released it on ebook, because obviously originally it was not released in ebook in '95. So if you're looking for it on Amazon or on Harlequin, this is the cover you're going to look for. But if you can maybe happen upon it at a used bookstore, or if you're looking on thrift books, you'll probably be able to find a copy. But yeah, I really enjoy it, and I do recommend it if you like romantic suspense. The next book that I read was another one by B.J. Daniels, and this is Unforgiven. Again, another romantic suspense. This is pretty much predominantly what she writes, is romantic suspense novels. It's the first book in the Beartooth Montana series, and it was narrated on audio by Graham Winton. Now, this Beartooth Montana series, I'm pretty sure the entire thing is available on the Audible Romance package. At least the first 2 or 3, because this one was, for sure. The narration on this I really actually enjoyed. Even though it was narrated by a guy, I think the romantic suspense ones really work narrated by a man. The Crew of Hunters ones are all narrated by Luke Daniels, or most of them are narrated by Luke Daniels, or they're all narrated by a male. And it just seems to work, and I really like it. It was originally published in 2012 by Mira. It has an average rating on Goodreads of 4.11 stars, and I gave it 4 stars. Again, no challenges, though, completed of this one. So this is labeled as a romantic suspense, but I will tell you my personal opinion. The romance in this was really secondary. The entire story itself was kind of the entire mystery that was going on. So this is the story of, excuse me while I check my notes. I read so many books, I have to write down the characters' names or else I'm going to totally forget. It's Destry and Rylan. So many, many years ago, Destry and Rylan used to be a couple and they were dating. And her older brother and his younger sister were also a couple. And then one night, his sister is killed. And the entire town, you know, all evidence is actually pointing towards her brother. Her father, who owns this huge ranch and has a lot of money and he's very influential, he actually sends the son away. And, you know, to kind of like, until like the smoke can clear kind of idea. Well, you know, like 8 years or 10 years has passed and the son comes back because there's new evidence and the police want him to come back to town. And he brings with him his like new stripper fiance kind of idea. So of course there's trying to find out who actually killed Rylan's sister. Was it in fact, you know, Destry's brother? And you get like, as I'm reading this book or listening to this book, it was so well done because you know, you'd hear something about somebody and go, I think they're the killer. They definitely did it. And then you hear somebody else and you're like, oh no, maybe they're the killer. So really, it did keep me guessing the whole time. And like I said, the romance aspect of this came really secondary. You know, I really think this really focused on the mystery, and I really enjoyed that. Not that I don't enjoy a good romance, because you guys know I love me a good romance. But you know what? The mystery plot of it was so well done that you didn't need that part of it as much. Do you know what I mean? But it was still nice. It was a very slow burn romance. And it did have some sexy times in it, but it was still really good. And, you know, it was really well done, I should say. And it wasn't overly graphic or anything like that, so keep that in mind. There is some swearing in this, you know, violence, obviously, and things like that. But it was still really good, and a great cast of characters in this town. It's a small town in Montana called Beartooth. And you meet, like, the local shopkeeper. And again, it's a first in a series, so you're going to start meeting characters that are going to appear in later books. And, you know, some of them are so quirky and so small town. It's really, really good. Highly recommend, highly enjoyed it. Definitely check it out if you like romantic suspense novels. The next one that I finished, or the last one that I finished for this week, excuse me. Did I get them all? Oh my gosh, I skipped one. I'm so bad. I'm so sorry. Let me jump back. Before I had finished Odd Man Out, I finished a Nancy Drew, and that was The Secret of the Old Clock, of course, by Carolyn Keene. This is a mystery story, if you didn't know. It is the first book in the Nancy Drew series, and it was originally published in 1930. It has an average rating of 3.98 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 4 stars. No challenges for this one. Last year when I was reading my Back to My Childhood books, I was reading my way through the Babysitters Club. I do plan on doing that. I have a couple of them actually on hold with my library. So I do plan on, like, fitting those in with the Nancy Drew, like, you know, kind of switching off between them. But anyway, I didn't do challenges for them last year, but I think if I can fit them in, I will. Because they do fit most page count goals for most challenges. You have to have, like, over 150 pages, and these ones definitely fit the bill. Anyway, I'm sure everybody's familiar with this story. It is Nancy Drew looking for a will, and it was just so, not nostalgic, because the 1930s is not my nostalgia. And I think I mentioned last week or the week before in my video how the year that this book was published, my grandmother had just arrived in Canada from Poland, and she was only, my grandma was, she passed away this year at the age of 92. So what year was she born? 1928? No, it wouldn't have been 1928. 1926. So my grandmother was 4 when this book came out. And as I'm reading through it, I just keep thinking about that and how much the world has changed since then. And it's so funny, like, it just amazes me. And I was saying that to my dad the other, on Saturday or Sunday, we were over at my aunt's house, and I'm like, what sometimes boggles my mind is how much Grandma actually saw in her lifetime. And you know, I think about these books, and they seem, it seems in a way like it's very modern, because, like, Nancy Drew's driving around a convertible, and they have electricity, and, you know, but this other part of me is like, it was 1930. My grandmother was only 4. Like, it's hard to kind of wrap your brain around that sometimes, because her growing up was so very rural compared to this book where it took place, right? So, and I think these books take place in, is it Illinois? I don't know where River Heights is actually set. They don't actually say a state, so I think they kind of keep it, like, up in the air, like it could be, you know, any town USA kind of idea, maybe? I don't know. but I really enjoyed it, and I am really loving rereading. I've actually never read these. I've read this one and the second one, but further on from that, I've never really read through this. I read the later books, not these, the hardcovers that you're seeing the picture of here with the yellow cover. I read further on the ones that were published in the 80s, because my library had a lot of them. And I'm not talking the ones in the Nancy Drew case files. I'm talking about the ones that came before that are actually part of this series. If you go on Goodreads, there's actually 175 books in the Nancy Drew series. And then it splits off to like the case files and then the younger and stuff like that. Anyway, sorry, long tangent about Nancy Drew. And now I'm losing my voice. So let me jump on to the next book. And the last book that I finished this week was Kidnapping in Kendall County by Delores Fossen. This is another romantic suspense novel. I read a lot of romantic suspense this week. It is book number 4 in the Sweetwater Ranch series, and it is Harlequin Intrigue number 1534. It was published in 2014, of course, by Harlequin. Has an average rating on Goodreads of 4.17 stars, but I only gave it 3 stars. Unfortunately, it was my least favorite book of the month. So my challenges for this one, for my Triple RC for June, challenge number 8, which was June 19th, is Juneteenth. And it has something to do with the Civil War. And you had to read a book, I think, set in Texas, and the series is set in Texas. I got my 22nd out of 45th book for my Stacking the Series challenge. And I finally finished my first book for the summer book bingo. Yay! I do have a picture of the book right here, but I'm going to superimpose over top of it right now just so you guys can see my bingo card. What I did for my bingo card, and I think some people got confused, and I do apologize. Every time you went to that page, it refreshes the bingo card to something new. Now, the reason I picked that to use as our bingo card is that if we do this again next year, I'm already planning new categories. So I'm going to leave the original categories, but add more. So the potential is that next year, you know, everybody could have a completely different card with even different, you know, categories on them. So that's exciting. But anyway, that's besides the point. So what I did was I did a screenshot, and I kind of just copied my card because I have really nowhere to put a piece of paper. I don't do a lot with paper. I'm a very digital person. So I will put a picture of my bingo card up here, and I will show you the marked off spot that I finally got. I'm looking at the boards on Goodreads, and you guys are like, I finished 2 books and 3 books. I'm like, I finished my first book, so yay me. And I got this for the subcategory of romantic suspense. So like I said, my least favorite book of the month, or of the week, excuse me. I didn't dislike the story. What really, really bothered me in the story was, what's her name? Rosalie. This is Rosalie and Austin's story. So she is the sister of some of the characters from the first 3 books. And her 11 months earlier, she gave birth to a little girl. Her fiance was killed in the line of duty before she could tell him that she was pregnant. And then she gives birth, and then her baby is actually stolen. So the whole premise of this series of, well, kind of one of the overarching things with this series is actually a baby farm, like where they actually steal babies and give them or sell them to couples that are looking for children, like a black market for babies, essentially. So her baby has been taken. And she's pretty much with no, she doesn't have any sort of, you know, police or military or none of that background. She decides on her own to go and infiltrate this gang of horrible people to get her daughter back. And she doesn't even know where her daughter is. She's just trying to find where her daughter might be. Now, I get it. I'm not a parent, but I can imagine the lengths that you would go to get your child back. But there's being, you know, vigilant and trying to do everything that you possibly can, and then there's being stupid. And in my opinion, she was stupid. She was taking far too many risks. And at one point, Austin even tells her, if you get killed and we find your daughter, what good is that going to be then? You know what I mean? She just really bothered me. She was very whiny. Oh my gosh. Again, I kept trying to give her the benefit of the doubt because her daughter had been kidnapped. But I just thought, like, come on, lady, get over yourself. So yeah, unfortunately, I like this series. I love this author. That main character, though, she really, really kind of drove me crazy. And because of that reason, I did give this one a lower star rating. But it was still really full of action. It was really, really interesting. And outside of that, I highly enjoyed it. So, what am I currently reading? Sorry, I'm looking down at my tablet. My current audiobook is Sit, Stay, Love by Debbie Burns. This is book number 2 in the Rescue Me series. Guys, I am loving this book. I'm loving this series. There's only 2 books so far, but it is fabulous. This is being narrated on audio by Stina Nielsen. She's doing a great job, too. So a very quick premise of this story is you don't have to have read the first book to read this one, but both books center around, I don't know if there's going to be more after this, I'm hoping so, centers around an animal shelter in St. Louis, or just outside St. Louis, Missouri. And in this story, this is Kaylee's story and Kaylee and Kirk. And what happened is there was a dog fighting ring, which is just horrible. And all these dogs were rescued. And the shelter that Kaylee works at, the one that the whole story is based off, or the series is based off of, they agree to take in some of the dogs that can potentially be reformed. So they end up taking in these dogs, and they hire Kirk because he worked military training dogs. So he's got a lot of experience training very aggressive dogs. And they bring him in, and then it becomes the relationship between Kaylee and Kirk. And it is adorable. It's also absolutely heartbreaking when you hear about some of these dogs and what happened to them. It does not get overtly graphic about the dog fighting itself, but knowing that this happens and seeing how the dogs, you know, after the fact, and trying to be reformed, it's heartbreaking, part of it. And part of it is very uplifting too. I mean, it's not a sad story, it is a happy story. But it does have its moments where it can get kind of, I actually got teary-eyed a couple times listening to some of the passages because of the nature of what's happening. But I really love this series. This author is fantastic. This is unfortunately not available on the Audible romance package. I did buy this on audio because I really wanted to listen to it on audio, and it's really, really good. Stina Nielsen's a fantastic narrator. My current audio or ebook is Rancher's Dream by B.J. Daniels. I know, another B.J. Daniels. This is book number 6 in the Cahill Ranch, Cahill, I think that's how it's said, in that series. And this book isn't actually being published until July 24th of this year, so not until late next month. So I did promise I would explain. There's not much I can say right now, not because anybody's saying I can't say anything, but because I don't have all the details yet. And I don't want to give you guys too much until I know the details myself. But what I can tell you is that back in early May, I was contacted by Harlequin. They had seen my videos, and I've been wanting to tell you guys forever, but I haven't had anything signed yet. Like, nothing was in writing yet, so I didn't want to say anything until that happened. But yes, Harlequin contacted me. They are going to be starting their own channel on YouTube. And they have asked me, along with, I don't know who else, there's some other booktubers and book bloggers, book bloggers, who are going to be producing content for them. And my first assignment, if you will, is to do a video all about B.J. Daniels. And they provided me the 2 new books that are coming out this summer. So Rancher's Dream is one of them. The other one is an intrigue novel coming out in August. So this week I'll be reading both of them. I will be filming a video, and that will be going up for their website. I don't know when that's going to happen yet. I have a date when they want the video done by, which is absolutely cool. And I will be sending it to them, but I don't know the time frame of when they're going to post it. There are some other things in the works which are super exciting for me to be working with them. And you guys, I'm beyond thrilled about this. You guys have no idea. So that's why there were so many B.J. Daniels books read this week, or over the last couple weeks. Not because I haven't read her before. I've read a lot of her work, but it was years ago. And I thought, if I'm going to sit down and intelligently talk about her work, I wanted to get some stuff fresh in my mind, because I read so many books, it's easy to forget, and you know what I mean? So yeah, so that's why all the B.J. Daniels, but you know, this one. So I think what I'm going to do, because typically, like as you guys see, I sit here and I actually discuss all these books at length to you, like kind of give mini reviews. For Rancher's Dream and then the intrigue one that's coming out in August, I think what I might do is, when I talk about them next week, is just to say, you know, I read it, here's what I rated it, full review coming. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to film separate reviews for those books, because not for Harlequin's channel, but for my own. They didn't ask me to do this. I'm going to do this on my own. For this channel here. And I will post those reviews separately a week before the book is actually to be published, just so you guys are aware that that's what's going to happen. So literally, I haven't even started this book yet. I think I'm a chapter into it. Like, I've just started it, but I'm going to be reading it over this weekend, and I'm very excited. My current Nancy Drew book is The Hidden Staircase by Carolyn Keene, which is book number 2 in the series, of course. As I said, really, really loving reading through this one. And my current print book, look, I have all this room on this chair now, I can put stuff up here, is called Secret Contract, and it's by Dana Marton. Marton? Yeah, Marton. This is book number 1 in the Mission Redemption series. I don't think this is backwards to you guys. I hope it's not. Now I'm looking at my camera a little concerned, but I don't think it is. This, I didn't realize when I picked this up how good this was going to be. Like, right off the bat, this was good. So essentially it's about 4 very different women, and the series is about these 4 different women who are actually in prison. The main girl in this one, what is her name? Carly. She is in jail for computer hacking. And at the very beginning of the book, she's brought into this room in prison with a woman who killed somebody, with a woman who, something about aggravated assault, you know, stuff like that. And then hers, compared to the other ones, is a little bit more blue collar, if you will. But anyway, all of them are being told that they can get out of jail early if they agree to do this assignment for the FBI and CIA. So essentially they're creating almost like a Charlie's Angels kind of team where, you know, each of them has a different skill set. And so each woman's going to have a different book. So there's 4 books in total in this series. I can't wait to read the rest of them because so far this one is really good. And, you know, pretty much how they kind of infiltrate this gang or something like that. And, you know, they're being trained and stuff like that. Like very, very woman-powered, actually, because, you know, it's women that are being asked to do this, which is very exciting. So, yeah, so far I'm really enjoying this one. I don't know if this is available on ebook, but definitely check it out. If anything, you can probably get it on Thrift Books if you're interested. But I do plan on definitely picking up the rest of the series because so far, and I'm only that much through it, like I've just really started it, I'm thoroughly enjoying this one. So that is it for the reading. Let me very, very quickly show you what I am knitting on this weekend. My sock bag, for those of you who've been watching my videos for a while, you probably know what I'm about to show you. My very bright, my very bright and colorful socks. So yes, here they are. Oh, I thought I lost my 3rd needle. So there's my sock. I just finished putting the heel in today. So there's the heel, and I've got the foot done. So I'll be working on these this weekend, and I hope to get them finished. I just love this yarn, and look at the pattern in there. Isn't that pretty? Oh, I just love it. So yeah, so that's my knitting. But anyway, guys, that is it for this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Videos coming up this week. I've got 2 that I'm going to be filming next. The first one is actually the anticipated reads for July, just the standard anticipated reads for July. There's some really great books coming out next month, you guys. I am super excited. And then the other video I'm going to be doing is actually going to be a recommendations video. Another one. You guys really seem to like the last one, and I do plan on doing one of these a month. And this one is actually from a viewer. A viewer asked me to do this one. And it's going to be recommendations on historical romances set during the American Revolution. So kind of a little niche topic, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So please stay tuned for those coming up this week. And anyway, guys, that is it. Please let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them. And until my next video, guys, take care and happy reading. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everybody.